Aloha. Welcome to the Fast, Healthy, and Ono Cooking trip around the world. This month, we are traveling through the Mediterranean. My name is Cindy, and I'm an AARP Hawaii volunteer. I'll be your host tonight, and we'll be making a Lebanese Tabouleh salad and hummus. These dishes are popular throughout the Mediterranean and around the world. Wait. Not turning. On behalf of our sponsors, Kaunoa Senior Services on Maui, U'ala Leaf Cafe at Wilmer Community College, and AARP Hawaii, welcome. For those of you who are new or maybe unfamiliar with AARP Hawaii, we are a membership organization for people 50 and older. But what we do for everyone. We hope that with this series, you can learn some techniques that you can use to build or maintain a healthy lifestyle. Let's do a quick bit of housekeeping. This is a picture of what you should be seeing at the bottom of your Zoom screen on a PC and Mac, and possibly the top of the screen on an iPad. Everybody is currently on mute. If you want to submit a question or comment, please click on the button that says Q&A and type in your question. I will be monitoring the questions and making sure they get asked. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you may type your questions in the comments. The chat command also isn't necessarily going to be needed unless you want to communicate a technical issue and for participant interaction. Alice Swift, Dave DeWitt, and Jackie Bolin are standing by to help. So please make sure you use the Q&A for questions and comments. We recommend that you select speaker side-by-side view rather than gallery view for this presentation. Do this by clicking on the upper right part of your screen where it says View. Once you're in that view, you can change the size of the slides or of the speaker simply by clicking and dragging on the middle bar. Finally, we have added closed captioning to this presentation for those who have difficulty hearing. You can turn this off on your end by clicking on the CC Live transcript button in the lower right side of your screen and clicking on your subtitle. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Chef Daniel Swift, who will be leading us through this cooking series. Take it away.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. Can you hear me, see me? Oh, the monitor. Well, welcome everyone. What's today? Thursday? It's been a busy week, I gotta say. We had a bunch of classes going on, so it's nice to be able to take a break and focus on something that's really super simple and delicious. We didn't have a protein tonight, but we're gonna go through and make the tabouleh, kind of classic dish. You can buy this actually already pre-prepared in a lot of your delis, and I'll go through where I got the ingredients. And then we added hummus as well. So we'll do a Lebanese style hummus. Most of the hummuses are all pretty similar. I make it with a couple variations. And I'll talk about that as we go through the mixing process. So tonight's star of the show, I guess, basically would be our bulgur. And I'm not sure if a lot of folks cook with this for anything other than maybe tabouleh. We use it sometimes in bread mixes. It's a great side dish if you're into whole grains. And basically what it is, I have some here, you can sort of see, it almost looks like minute rice in a way. It's basically parboiled cracked wheat. So we're almost sort of rehydrating it tonight. It's not something that has to be cooked for a long period of time. And it is really good for you. It holds its shape, it absorbs moisture and dressings or liquids well. You could even utilize it in a soup probably if you wanted to. So lots of different uses for it. I will say that this week I ran all over town yesterday and the day before trying to find stuff. So I tried here in Kaneohe, I tried Safeway, they didn't have it. I tried Times, they didn't have it. I tried Foodland, they didn't have it. And I went to Whole Foods, assuming they would definitely have it. They did not have it. And then I finally found it in Kailua, at the Kailua Down to Earth, which has, they're back to having the bulk I guess, bulk section where you can buy all the different grains and stuff by weight as much as you want. So they did have it there. The other stores may have been out. Last week, was it that we made the couscous? And then that particular brand, Far East or whatever, makes a bunch of different Middle Eastern style salads and grains. And they used to have that or this mix as one of the offerings, but they didn't have it on the store shelves now. So I'm not really sure, pardon the timer on our pita. I'm not really sure if it's just not available or not being shipped in, or if it's delayed, or if they just stopped carrying it. But just make a note to yourself, if you're going to go looking for it, you will probably want to go straight to your Whole Foods, or excuse me, your Down to Earth, and get it in the bulk section. I think it was like $5 a pound or something. So in the recipe, I wrote that because it's parboiled, you don't basically have to cook it. You can just boil the water separately, pour it over the bulgur, and then let it sit, not unlike what we did last week with the couscous. So I have some water going for this little bit that I set aside, and then I can just pour some over and let it set. And it will be done by the end, so I should be able to throw it into the salad. But I'll just show that. So we're sort of, like I said, just rehydrating this in a way. And it's about 1.5 to 1. You'll find different recipes online for the liquid. I go about 1.5 parts water to 1 part of the bulgur. So that can just set, and I can set it aside and come back to that later. I may even actually put it in the fridge to let it cool once it's absorbed the liquid, so that I'm not putting hot bulgur into the fresh mint and parsley salad. So this one I did cook. I was in a hurry because we just finished a class, like I said, this afternoon. And this one I cooked straight away. So in the recipe, I mentioned that you don't have to cook it, but you can if you're in more of a hurry. Truth be told, I almost burnt it because someone came and I was talking and the whole sides of the pot and the bottom of the pot got burnt. So if you ever have that happen with something like this or rice, I'm sure everybody's done that cooks. What I did was I just took it off and I turned it upside down and gave it a bang, and all of the burnt part stayed in the pot. And then the center portion that had been stuck to the pot plopped out. And this is what I ended up with. So this has not been my friend. I chased it all week and then I burned it. I'm not really sure. So Jackie, you might not want to come picking me up tonight. I'm not really sure if it's going to turn out. We'll find out. But it's nice and kind of crumbly. I then put it in the cooler and just let it cool while I went and picked some herbs. And it's nice and cold now, and it's ready to go. So we're basically just adding the ingredients in this recipe into the bulgur, mixing it up, and that's all there is to it. So the ingredients that I have, let's go through them really quick. I've got some chopped cucumber. I'm going to cut the rest of this cucumber and add in probably at least half of it. And I have on there to cut small. It's kind of up to you. I don't have time to cut everything in the full quantity, so I pre-cut some of the stuff, but I do want to walk through some techniques for what we're doing in the cutting area. Green onions, everybody knows how to cut those. Those are simple, straight out of our garden. The tomato, I'm going to show you how I cut it. The cucumber, as I mentioned, I'm going to show you how to cut one of those. And then I've got I diced 2 of the Romas, and these were pretty big. So I think the recipe called for 4. You can go 4, you could go 5. It's up to you. You could go 3 or 2, depends on how much you like tomatoes. So I'm ending up with like 3 in total because they were pretty big, and I don't want to overdo it with the tomatoes. This, you can see, is already sort of absorbed that liquid. It's got a little bit left in it, but it's absorbing that up. So that's good. We got a little olive oil that will go into this. And this is where we would use a quality extra virgin olive oil. A lot of times if you're mixing or using olive oil for cooking, you don't have to use the extra virgin. You don't have to use the high quality one. But in a salad where the flavor of the olive oil is one of the predominant ones that you're looking for in the dish, I'd recommend you get a nice quality one for that. The ones that are just sort of pour over for salads and things. Tiny bit of salt. And then I've got I'm using lemon juice today. This is a pretty zesty type of salad. So you do get that burst of lemon or lime. Either one works. And It's up to you again. If you like it a little less acidic, then just go less on the lime juice or the lemon juice. You can add more if you want. If you like it more, you can add a little bit extra. So totally up to you. And then the second part of the show that's probably one of the stars would be the Italian parsley, which is another item. Thank you to Jackie Boland for giving us some of the curly parsley last week. I had that as a backup. I have it set up here. But I finally found some flat leaf Italian parsley. They were out at like 3 of the stores I went to. So again, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but this is the one that you would use ideally. You could use the curly American parsley, the tighter bunches of it, but Italian's a little bit sweeter, a little bit more salad-like. So I prefer this one in this dish. So I'm going to go through the process I use for cutting just these 4 items and then mixing them in. And if you have questions, Cindy, feel free to throw them my way.
Oli, nothing yet.
Okay, so I'm going to cut a tomato. I'll show you a trick. I recommend you have a nice serrated knife. If you're cutting tomatoes, the skin could be a little resistant to a knife, especially if you're not sharpening them a lot. Mine needs to be sharpened. It's sort of sharp, but you know, on a tomato, it can cut, but it's not as easy as it is when you're using a serrated knife. So one trick that I do is I put the stem side down, and then I'll use my serrated knife and I'll sort of cross hatch it. So I come down like almost all the way through, but I keep my knife at an angle. So the tip hits the board, but the knife doesn't go all the way through. So it holds the tomato together. So depending on the size pieces I want cut, in this case, I want them kind of small. I'm just going through the tomato 3/4 of the way or slightly more, but it's not cutting pieces off and cutting it in half. Because again, my knife is at a bit of an angle. So the tip hits, but it's not going all the way through. And then I turn it and I do the same this way. Like that. And then I lay it on its side. And then I can come back and go all the way through. And that gives me a nice fine diced tomato. And then when you get to the top, you're going to have a piece that where you didn't cut through that looks like this. That's easy enough to then just come and do a couple cuts there. And you got a nice fine dice. So a serrated knife works really well if you're working with tomatoes. It's one of the bread and tomatoes are probably the 2 most common items that you cut with a serrated knife. And then I'm using the seeds and the juice. Some people might even take the time to peel or take the seeds out, the juice, but I want all of that in this particular dish tonight. And then for the cucumber, I'm just going to split this in half. I could probably take actually about this portion of it. And then I'm going to split it. You could take a spoon and scoop out the seeds if you wanted to. Some people leave it in. This is not an English cucumber, which I recommend. It has a little bit more seeds when you get the American style, the fatter cucumber. So I'll cut quarters and then just come across the top to remove part of the seeds. I don't have to take them all out, but it can create a lot of moisture, and this salad doesn't matter, but other dishes it might. So you just run your knife across the top. Or like I said, use a spoon earlier to scoop it in half. And then I'm going to cut little thin strips. Depends on the size you want in your salad. Some people like larger chunks, others really small. Depends on how elegant, I suppose, you want it. But once you get those strips cut, you're just turning it sideways and then doing the same process that we do anytime we're cutting something straight. So we just come down. So you can rock it. Someone had asked last week about a rocking knife, and I saw a picture of what they were talking about. Alice showed me. Afterwards, I don't use those herb like rocking knives, and they have the little a wooden board sometimes that they go with. I just use the rock of the blade, and then that's all cut and ready to go. If you wanted it finer, you could do smaller strips, or you could come back now and just come over it a couple times and chop it up. So that's already looking super colorful and beautiful. And now we can move to our parsley and our mint. So thanks to Jackie Malley. It's not her famous bubblegum mint. I'm sorry, Jackie. I know you don't grow that, but this is just regular spearmint. I don't use peppermint for this. I suppose you could. And then there are, of course, loads of different kinds of mint out there today. You could probably put any one in you want. It's a little more fragile, so I'm gently kind of bunching it together. And then I'm just going to cut it into small pieces.
Okay, I have a question about the parsley.
Yeah.
Can you use cilantro instead of parsley?
Oh, that's a great question. So I can draw Alice into it. She went to the store yesterday for me to see if Safeway had brought in parsley. I think it was Safeway or Times, because we were there the day before. And she's like, I got it. She brought it home. I came home from class and it was cilantro. So they look really similar, but I guess the answer to the question is yes, you could. And as we always say, you can do whatever you want. If you like rosemary, you can throw it in there. The thing with cilantro, mint, parsleys, I call them, like we did an herb class early on in the series. I call them like salad herbs. So you can eat a bowl of cilantro or a bowl of mint or a bowl of parsley because they're really leafy, light, and salad-like. So any of those that fall into that category would work. Personally, I wouldn't probably do rosemary or any of the ones that I call woody or earthy herbs. They tend to be a little overpowering. It might be a little firm. So you could do that, but it's going to change the flavor. It would be almost more like a Mexican salsa, which usually would have cilantro or stuff in it. But that might make a great salad. You could even just buy the salsa fresca in the supermarket and dump it into the bulgur that's already cooked, and you have an instant salad. So it just sort of depends on what you're looking for. So I took this bunch of parsley and pulled the stems down. So I just have the tops here, and I'm going to take a little bit of the stem as well, but I'm going to kind of bunch this up and do basically just what I did with the mint. I'm trying to get as short of cuts as possible on the early side, so that's less cutting for me on the back end.
Okay, I have another question.
Yep.
What is the best way to wash parsley and mint?
Parsley and mint, submerge them in water. These were submerged. What you want to do is make sure that like any sand or dirt or anything like that sinks to the bottom of the water. So submerging them is always the best bet. So these, I just filled a gallon of water. Actually, I threw in some ice as well and dunked them, shook them up, swirled them around, did that twice. And then that got rid of all of the excess dirt that might've been in there. And then towel dried them a little bit and set it on a bowl, wrapped in a paper towel, and it was good to go. Kept it nice and fresh. So it's always best to make sure that it's submerged, especially if you're getting it out of your garden. And then here we're just chopping this up. I don't recommend you try like a food processor. I've seen it done. I've tried it myself actually before when you're doing like huge batches of chopped parsley. If we were to throw this in a food processor, it kind of just smashes it around. It doesn't really chop it. Food processor is not really designed to cut something this delicate well. So you really sort of have to do this by hand. And it's up to you how fine you like it. I'm making a double batch here, so it's a little bit more than the recipe calls for, but that looks to me to be about right, the right amount. And then I'll always tend to use a towel, or you have those little scrapers that you can use to get things off of the board and into your bowl or your pot. So a towel seems to work pretty well for me. I just slide it across, try to pick it all up, and it wipes the counter at the same time. And then I can just fold the towel and come back and get anything extra that's in there like that. So that's pretty easy. The extra cucumber and tomato I'm going to set aside. I did bring, because we had a delivery for some really nice cherry tomatoes. And if you prefer to use these as opposed to dicing aroma, or if you want to use an heirloom tomato or something in the place of aroma, which is traditionally used, feel free. You can just take these little ones, cut them in half or quarters or however you want to do them, throw them in. If you're traveling with the salad or you're making it today for tomorrow, you might even leave the tomatoes whole a little bit because they'll hold up better. Once they're mixed in here, it starts to pull out all of the water and the juices in the tomato. And I find this salad's probably good for, maybe 2 days, but it does get, the items inside will get a little bit soggy because of the acidity. And now I just need to mix it really well. Super colorful. If you wanted to throw peppers in here, or honestly, whatever you like. I'm not real, if you watch the show, I'm not like ultra traditional. I'm really more interested in trying to come up with creative twists on traditional dishes, if anything. And then I did, like I say, just saw this in the deli section already made, good to go. So that's about where we want it. I'm gonna just taste it, make sure. One more salt, teeny bit. And we've been using the extra virgin olive oil. This is a Spanish one, I think, for the last 3 weeks. This is my last bottle of it. But I can tell you, I just tasting that. The really, really good high quality olive oil comes through in the flavor of this dish, and it's awesome. So like I said, try to make sure you get something that's good and flavorful, because you're really going to get it when you have a straight, raw, fresh dish like this. It comes out really nice. So I'm going to push that to the side, and then we'll move on to making our hummus, which is simple. You can do this by hand and mashing it, but I will tell you that it's much easier if you use a food processor. So I have sort of a medium-sized one here. I don't actually like this one that much because you have to remove this to take the lid off, which is odd. But I didn't want to use the big one. We use a really, really large one, and unless I'm making a bigger batch of something, it doesn't really work. Okay, so we've got the ingredients here, and for that, our main ingredient, of course, is chickpeas or garbanzo beans. And here's a dry form. You can buy this in the bean section at the supermarket where the lentils are near the rice, or you can get the canned. If you don't want to boil them and take the time to cook them yourself, just buy the ones that are already in a can, soft and ready to go. Save the liquid. I drained it off. I have 2 cans here. The recipe calls for 1 can, but I'm making a little bit bigger batch just so it's easier to see. So I did drain the liquid and kept it as a reserve. You won't probably need all of it when you go back into the hummus at the end to get the consistency you're looking for, but you will need some. And then anything that's left over, you could use that in a soup, or you could use it in a sauce or something else. So try not to throw it away. It's super useful and good to have around. So we've got that. And then these can just be soaked and boiled. The instructions are on the bag. Use those if you'd like. They work great. So I've got these 2 ingredients here. Tahini, which is sesame paste, pretty popular in Hawaii. We use that a lot. Actually, we looked up today the sesame seed plant. I've never seen one. I'm like, I was wondering how many seeds per plant and all of that, because it takes a lot of sesame seeds to make the gallon or the quart jars of tahini that we use. And it's world renowned. It's used in Asia, Southeast Asia, all over the world, Middle East. So we're going to dig into the history of the sesame seed a little bit more. Maybe we should do a show about it because there's a lot of things I don't know that I'd like to learn. So that's an important ingredient in it. Truth be told, a lot of times I don't add this to my hummus because it's got a pretty strong flavor. And I think the chickpeas themselves are the star of this particular dish. But in a traditional Lebanese style, like one like this, we want to put it in. We've got garlic, olive oil, some cumin, which we've used a few times lately. I toasted and ground this up today, so it's fresh and nice. And then here I have a little paprika to sprinkle on top as a garnish. I don't put that in. That's just a sprinkle on top. And then we've got lemon juice that we'll add in for the acidity. So that's really the primary ingredients for it. A little bit of salt to bring it all together. I did crush the garlic. So I think I've showed you guys a few times when you're taking garlic and you need it crushed. I just put it to the front of my cutting board. I'll use my knife and I'll place my knife flat on the front of it and I just give it a smash and that crushes the garlic, kind of pre-chops it in a way. And I'm gonna throw that in. And hopefully this won't be too strong. I like garlic, so I grabbed a couple extra cloves and we'll see how it turns out. Hopefully it won't be too strong.
I have a question about the salad.
Yes.
Anne wants to know, can she add feta cheese?
No, I'm just kidding. Of course. I don't think I've ever said no before. That's the first time. You can add anything you want. A little crumbled feta on top of that would be amazing. I think any type of enhancement that you want to do to that sort of dish would be perfect. I was thinking grilled chicken tonight, but I got too busy today, so I didn't have a chance. But just imagine the items. This could be served as a side or as a main. You could chop chicken up, chop up even beef, grilled beef that's left over from barbecue or shredded chicken mixed in there would be wonderful, or even on the side. So there is no wrong answer. You could absolutely add that if you wanted to. Okay, so I've got to put in the tahini as well as the the chickpeas there. And I just need to sort of blend that up to get them sort of starting to smash. And like I said, to do that by hand is kind of a chore, but it can be done. So that'll chop up the garlic while it's chopping up the chickpeas. Now, some people like it thicker, some people like it thinner. Some people prefer it to be a little chunky. Others want it perfectly smooth. That's going to be up to you to decide. You could stop now, for example. I got to take the lid off. And here, let me try to show you. You can see got some texture to it, almost sort of like spackle, or you'd see the chunks of sand or mortar in. That's the consistency it's at right now. I want to always make sure that I scrape the side down because I see some whole ones that stuck. And I'm going to go for a little bit thinner, or excuse me, a little bit finer than that. And as we add the liquid, you'll see that will also help grind that up so that it's a little bit finer. So in goes the lid again. And at this point, I can hit it with a little bit of salt. I got the low sodium chickpeas, so I may need to add back a little salt. If you're laying off salt, you certainly don't have to put it in. You can wait till the end and taste it, but a little pinch on the front end is what I'm looking for. And I'm going to throw in some cumin. Not all of it. I just ground up a small batch today, and I didn't measure it out. I want to make sure. I can always add more, but always err on the side of a little bit less as opposed to more, so that you can make modifications later. The olive oil. And this is the same olive oil that I had over here, the nice Spanish extra virgin one. And then I need my citrus juice, in this case lemon. And if you wanted to do some zest, I'm always talking about that. You can see the lemons that I'm using for juice, we'd already zested and used the zest for something else. So I couldn't get any zest from that. But I want a little bit of zest in here. So I'm gonna, if I were using a whole lemon that was not used before, I would have just zested it and juiced that. But the ones that I'm juicing already lost their zest. So just a little bit of that. It might not be traditional, but it, don't waste the zest. It enhances your dishes so much, so important. And now I can squeeze the juice on top of it.
Bunch of questions just popped up.
Yep.
Can this recipe use eggplant instead of garbanzo beans?
Eggplant. Do I?
Then it's baba ganoush. If you make it with eggplant, it's the same thing, but it's called baba ganoush.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know I have this recipe with garbanzo beans, but yes, you are correct. Thank you, Jackie. Are we making that though at some point, the baba ganoush? I can't remember if it's on our menu.
No,
a
we're
great
not.
recipe as well. But no, tonight it is hummus. Or am I making the wrong thing? I know we have eggplant next week. We're doing a stuffed eggplant. So we didn't want to do baba ganoush tonight, but yes, you can. Jackie can scold me if I'm doing the wrong dish again.
You're totally on track, Dan, but it is delicious if you make it with eggplant, but that is a different dish.
And like I said, next week we will be highlighting eggplant. We have a bunch of really nice ones that were grown locally. We're going to stuff it, so that'll turn out nice. So the one thing to be careful, you notice when I squeeze the citrus, I always run it through my fingers to make sure that I catch any seeds that might fall out. And here I see a couple that made it through the cracks, and you really want to make sure that you get those out. Nobody wants to be chewing on a seed, especially if you get the big lemon seeds. They're hard. They can chip a tooth if you're not careful. So I'm going to add about half of this, actually. I'm not going to add all of it. I can add more in a minute. So I'm going to do that.
Okay, some more questions.
Yep, go ahead.
Can you substitute turmeric for cumin?
Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't be traditional, but that sounds pretty good. I mean, as you know, we use turmeric quite a lot here. And I think any of those substitutions would be great. If you look at cumin and you smell it and what it brings to the table for most of the dishes that it's in, it's that really kind of robust, earthy type of spice, and anything that falls in that category with turmeric would be great. So I say get creative, give it a shot. If you don't like it, then you can just give it to your neighbor or something, put it in a nice jar with some crackers. And don't tell them that you don't like it. Just share well, maybe they'll love it. Who knows? Okay, now you can see this is a lot thinner than it was. It'll actually hold up. It's a little bit thinner. It's a little bit smoother, and I can hold it on a spoon. It'll slowly maybe drip. And here is where it's going to be sort of up to you to decide the thickness that you're looking for. So flavor wise, that's pretty close. That's a lot of garlic. Sorry, Jackie. And it can take the rest of this citrus. Oh, and there's a seed too. I missed it. Sank to the bottom. So be careful. Like I said, watch that. And the last little bit of zest. And we're good. I'm going to just mix that in.
Okay, some more questions while you're mixing.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, this is from Holly. She says, I know you probably planned out the next lessons, but I'm wondering if we could do baba ganoush with the eggplant and maybe naan bread in the future.
We might be able to do the naan as a side. I can't remember if baba ganoush is on our list of things. I think we've mapped it
It's
out.
not. We're leaving the Mediterranean because we only have 1 month after April of cooking programs. So we're doing a variety of different countries. But maybe when we come back, if we come back in the fall or something, we could do it.
Yep, we can look at that. Absolutely. So I didn't add yet any of the juice from the can, and it doesn't call for a lot in the recipe. And like I said, it could be optional. So it's still pretty thick, and I'm going to add a little bit of that just to thin it out a touch. So that's probably 2 tablespoons. And again, it depends on what you're doing. If you could even use this as a base for a salad dressing. It's really limitless in the types of things that you can do. But most people tend to, use it as a dip. And while it's running, you could also pour more liquid in. And a lot of times I'll just tilt my processor to sort of check the thickness of it. That looks about right there. And then I can remove this. Take the lid off. You have to be an engineer to work with this particular food processor. I've got a little bowl, just a little glass bowl that I'm going to put it in. And it's still got plenty of thickness to it for me. But again, if you want it thick, so if I were making this as a spread for a sandwich or a wrap, and we do that quite a bit here, I probably would have it on the thicker side, like it was in the first place, because I don't want it to make my bread soggy or my wrap soggy. So the thicker it is, the less moisture it has, and the less soggy it will make the wrap or the bread or whatever it is that you're making into a sandwich. Okay, so there's that. And as I mentioned before, we have a little paprika that we can use as a garnish. You can get a little shaker if you're using this a lot. Normally we have it in the kitchen. I'll try to be delicate and elegant in sprinkling it on. You don't want a big clump of paprika to fall onto it, just a little dusting. We have that really beautiful parsley, and at the base here, I can still find some nice colorful stems. I don't need a lot. Maybe I just want to put a little bit in there to garnish it, to give it some color. And the flavor profile there doesn't impact it. That would be nice together. Just a little bit of that parsley.
Okay, another question.
Yep.
Are those canned chickpeas?
The ones that I used were, yes. There were 2 cans in there, and the juice I set aside, but the ones that we used tonight were canned, absolutely. So it's a lot quicker and easier. And then before I plate this, it's settled, feeling this. This is still a little warm, so I'm actually not going to add it right now. I want to cool that off first, but I'll always stir it again. You know, even if you're making this, you can serve it immediately, but sometimes it's better to let it set. You know, give it 5, 10, 15 minutes. Pull the liquids out. You can even give it a little bit more than that if you want to, because you want all those flavors to blend, and then you end up with a nice harmony of those flavors coming together in the bulgur. So I've got a platter here. I also listed, I think, on there that we could use, you know, some romaine hearts. So we have some romaine hearts that we got in today. I'm just going to put a few. Actually, I think I'll just put them over here in the corner. And that could be actually even used with the hummus, either one. You get some really nice flavor. So it's a good way to eat lettuce. So you can use that as a dip and then just put them on there. So I just washed the hearts and cut the base off. I cut the top off some of them because they were a little too big and a little too leafy. I was envisioning more of something small. That's why we're using the hearts, you know, a small piece like this that you can then just like dip or spoon that onto. Even if I spoon some hummus and then a little bit of the tabouleh on top would be great. And then I'll just put this on the side.
Okay, a question about the paprika.
Yes.
She wants to know, is that Hungarian sweet paprika?
It was smoked Hungarian. I don't know if it said sweet. I could taste it. I try not to eat while I'm talking. I already have tabouleh in my teeth. Hopefully it's not showing up. But any type of paprika that you like, you could certainly use for it. No problem. And then I'm going to put some of the salad down. And this would be a good beach day salad to take. You want to probably keep it in the cooler because for me, if everything's cold and chilled, it's much better. So I would recommend that you make it a little bit in advance, put it in the cooler or in the refrigerator, get it nice and cold, and then transport it in a cooler. You have that. Move that to the side. You can pour a little bit of olive oil over the top of either of these. This one tasted fine, but even on the hummus, a lot of times we'll take a spoon and make a little pattern. I could do that if I were to just, you know, make little divots here and there. That gives a place for the olive oil to settle and it makes it look a little bit more attractive for the presentation. So you don't want it drowning in olive oil, but it does give you a little bit of contrast in color. And it also allows the first couple people to get that extra bit of olive oil. So clearly, if you're staying away from oils or trying to reduce your intake of that, then you don't want to add extra, but you can. And then last but not least, and we're right on time, I think, close enough. Am I all right? Timing wise, hopefully.
Yes,
You're
you
great.
are. You got time.
Cool. Just some pita. I was looking for whole wheat. I don't know. What's that? Yeah, we were checking multiple stores as well to find pita bread. So if you see it and you need it, get it. Maybe you can store it in the freezer. This freezes great, so this would be fine. I just toasted it up in the oven a little bit, and then I'm going to cut little wedges. We'll go in about, I cut it in 4 first, and then I'm going to cut it in half again. So that'll be 8 pieces. And if you're eating gluten-free or keto or any of that, you can find some really good high quality gluten-free breads or bread substitutes, I guess, in a way, these days. So you don't have to go with something that has gluten in it. I think we even thought about making a pita bread from scratch. But the time issues is the main concern in that regard. Okay. A few of those squares, I may as well cut up the last one.
Okay, I have a question about the olive oil.
Yep.
Do you ever get your olive oil at the, okay. It says La Land Olive Oil Store in Kailua. I think that's the one by Whole Foods.
Foods and stuff. I've seen that store, but I've never purchased my olive oil from there. The ones that we get here are the ones that I tend to use. We don't do a ton of cooking at home, a little bit, but we're familiar with that store. And there's one similar to it where Alice grew up, where we lived in California. So they have lots of different ones, in my understanding, and not just olive oils, all kinds of other things too. So I have not, but they allow you to taste, and you might want to swing by there and see which one suits your fancy when it comes to the taste you're looking for.
And they have balsamic vinegar too.
Yeah, probably all
Wonderful
kinds of
ones.
vinegars and oils and things like that. So, that's what we're basically putting together tonight. It's kind of light, it's healthy. Again, for me, it's like, imagine a little platter here with some grilled chicken, shrimp, any type of thing that would be great. This is a meal in and of itself, but it also would be great with a protein on the side. You could go grilled tofu or roasted tofu, lots of different things that you can do. It's super versatile, really flavorful, fresh, and healthy. So other questions that you have, Cindy?
This is Jackie. May I ask a question?
Yeah.
We've had a lot of comments in the chat about freezing hummus, which apparently you can do, and I didn't know. But do you have suggestions on containers for freezing things like that? Because I notice when I put my plastic containers in there, they tend to crack, and I'm wondering what you would recommend.
We freeze it all the time, to be honest. Anytime we have something, we're working with the large cans that weigh 7.5 pounds, so we might make 15 pounds at a time for an event. And if we don't use it all, we will definitely freeze it. What we use are just the deli cup containers, not unlike the ones that I use to put together most of the recipes and the demonstrations that we do. I don't know if you can see this one, but if you save your containers, I'm not sure which ones are cracking for you, Jackie, but don't fill them quite so full. So if you're not packing them full, and as it freezes, it expands upward as opposed to outward, you shouldn't have any trouble. But it does depend on the quality that the delis are using. But if you're getting a good poke at one of your markets, just save those containers. We use these again and again and again, and they work great. So plastic.
So the flimsier container is better than like a Tupperware or something that you use over and over, because those are the ones that crack, are sort of the heavier ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't use Tupperware, but it depends. The composition of the plastic makes a huge difference. So these hold up. Our dishwasher here, 180 degrees, and they hold up perfectly fine. Some of these we've had for 2-3 years, and we just use them again and again and again. I know that you can find the deli cups if you're not using the recycled ones that you get at the supermarket with your products. You can get them at Chef's Zone, most of your container type stores. They sell the packs of lids and the packs of containers. This is a 2-cup container. They make the 1 cup, which we were using for our bulgur. So this is about 8 ounces, roughly. This is about 16. And then they have the quart ones, which I don't have handy, but I've got spoons in it. So this style, but always just keep it a little under the top. So you allow for room for expansion.
I found
It will freeze perfectly well.
that the recycled containers that are 5 freeze well and handle well. Usually the 1s and 2s are very fragile. And then Janice says that she uses cottage cheese or sour cream containers, and she said they're great for freezing.
Absolutely. Oh, can't see what? Can you freeze tabbouleh? Alice asked if you could freeze tabbouleh. I would say I wouldn't recommend it. You could certainly freeze the bulgur if you cook it and it's separate, but we all know what happens to a tomato or a cucumber. Once it freezes, the cells expand, it breaks the structure down, and they're just not quite the same. They'll be watery, they'll leach that water out, and then they won't have the texture that they had when they were fresh. So the parsley would hold up fine. The bulgur would hold up fine. If you minced onions, the garlic or whatever would hold up fine, but tomato and cucumber would not. So I probably wouldn't freeze it as a completed finished salad.
Okay, this has to be our last question because we just ran over time.
Okay.
Somebody wants to know if there's any protein in bulgur, wondering if there's any protein in the dish without adding chicken or another protein.
Yeah, it is wheat, so there is protein, usually in the form of gluten. I don't know that it's enough protein it's certainly not on the par with quinoa and some of your other grains that are high in protein, but there are amounts of protein in it. Yeah, absolutely. You could probably look it up online and tell you exactly how many grams of protein are in a serving of bulgur.
That would be 6. I just looked it up.
So yeah, all of your wheat products are going to have protein. It's a natural element, I guess, or ingredient in wheat. That's the key ingredient that makes or gluten-free. You know, when you talk about gluten-free products, gluten is the protein in wheat that holds and makes baked goods great. And all of the gluten-free products, it's taken a long time for them to sort of come online. But now there's some pretty good products out there that work as a substitute, but it's never quite the same. Getting gluten-free to be the same as regular flour stuff is really, really difficult, but we're making progress.
Mahalo, Chef Dan.
Thank you, Cindy.
We're a little bit over.
Dave. All right.
And mahalo to everybody who've been watching from home. Next week, we're going to be doing Turkish stuffed eggplant with meat or strictly vegetarian. Mahalo to everybody. Aloha.
Thanks, everyone. Aloha.
Mahalo.